when talking about this week and playing, I don't see a scenario. I don't see him being active, and I'm not gonna. I do not plan to have him play at all. Teddy's whole week is going to be he's just getting back and able to do and work with the trainers today. Tomorrow he'll be able to do a little bit of football in a limited capacity, and as a result, we'll be moving forward with planning on starting Skylar Thompson this week.
There it is, straight from Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. Skylar Thompson, a guy who was a preseason phenom for the Dolphins, getting his first career start most likely this weekend. I remember a time when coaches weren't supposed to say anything at all about guys in the concussion protocol. Maybe the rules changed and I didn't notice, or maybe they're not enforced. But bottom line is guys are ready when the doctors say they're ready. And especially with Tua, Chris, I feel like the standard that's going to apply to him before he ever gets back on the field again is going to be much higher than it's ever been for any player in the history of the league. And I don't say that with hyperbole. I mean it. It's going to be higher for him than it's ever been for anyone to get back on a football field.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the optics of the situation call for that, let alone I think the reality of the situation calls for it. I mean, those are two significant head injuries, a.k.a. back and foot injuries. What the hell, right? I mean, come on. I mean, I really am still sitting here going, that first game against the Bills, his back and ankle hurt because his body almost collapsed because his head couldn't control the rest of his body. So I'm sure he did have an injury in the back and the leg when your body crumbles because your brain's just been crushed for a second. They got to be careful. That's two big concussions in a short, period of time, to where you want to make sure that heals and like you said, the optics of it and all that. The Teddy Bridgewater one's the one that I guess I was surprised to learn about yesterday. Again, there still seems to be that, Teddy doesn't think he had a concussion. There's a lot of challenging of the spotter who thinks they saw a stumble, and nobody seems to think that there really was, but they're not going to push back on it right now in this environment. I was surprised that they called him out this quickly and that he's still in some sort of protocol here, going into the Thursday practice.
And remember, Teddy had a pretty bad concussion last year and missed several games, and I think the diagnosis from the spotter that there was ataxia, that's the new buzzword that replaces gross motor instability, that may have been an overreaction. And as I've said many times, like it, I'd rather be an overreaction than underreaction. But as to Tua, here's my concern.
Right.
And look, I felt bad saying this a couple of weeks ago, and I've said it a few times and I've refined it. But the bottom line is this. If you're not big enough to play in the NFL, you better be adept at protecting yourself. And if you're either normal-sized like me, if you're that and you can't get rid of the football quickly, come up with some way to avoid taking big hits, you're not going to last. And it's ultimately going to be no different than not being fast enough, not being strong enough, not being big enough, not being good enough. If you can't protect yourself and you're going to go out there at 6'1", 190, and I would debate both of those measurements for Tua Tagovailoa after meeting him in person. He ain't 190, and I don't think he's 6'1". If you're that size, and, unlike you, Chris, or any of the other various quarterbacks who have come down the closest beanstalk, you grab a guy like that and you throw him to the ground, he's going to be more likely to get ragdolled and hit his head.
Right.
So we never saw Drew Brees get hit like that.
Yeah.
Why? Because he knew, I got to get rid of the football. They're going to throw me around like a ragdoll.
Right. Or just go down. And he's a bigger man than Tua, too, to that point. But,
if you can't do it, it's no different than not being fast enough, not being strong enough, not being big enough, not being good enough. There's a point where you just can't play in the NFL if you're that size and you can't protect yourself. And there's no birthright to be in the NFL, and just because you've been in the NFL doesn't mean you get to stay in the NFL. If you can't protect yourself and you can't avoid these head injuries, you're not going to last in the NFL because at some point they're just not going to clear you to play.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'm Mike. I echo those same sentiments. I think that's one of the things I texted right the night it happened right away. Like this is the dangers of having a small quarterback in our little PFT group text change. I mean, it is. Again, we saw Mahomes and Brady get ragdolled the same way. Their heads didn't hit the ground. And in fact, Grady Jarrett had more of a hold on Brady, and Brady's light and stressed out and looks like he's skin and bones right now. But again, I think that's something that you and I have tried to tell people. And I've even had, some people at the gym come up to me and be like, hey, I heard what you said. I never thought about that. Yeah, you're not going to ragdoll Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady to the extent of a guy like you're saying that's 6 foot, maybe 200 pounds. And let alone, we've seen a lot of other hits in his short NFL career where we just go, holy cow, did he get crushed there? So he's got to get a little bit better at that, to your point. It's a brutal sport. And you're right. Fair is not in the contract. So you got to earn it and stay healthy and do all that. And I'm a card-carrying member of protect yourself in the pocket, or you can get your body effed up in a big way, okay? And that's certainly, for a smaller guy, even, and holds more water than that.
I remember a former Dolphins quarterback who played college football up the road from me here in Morgantown, Pat White.
Yeah.
He took one big hit from Mike Taylor, and that
was it. Right.
Done. Over. And that's and look, I admire the courage, almost brazen and reckless from Tua to put himself in those spots and get himself potentially injured. But you're going to get to the point where they're not going to let you play anymore if you can't keep yourself from suffering these head injuries. And I think it's going to be a while before he's back on the field now. And maybe part of letting him back on the field is making sure he understands the importance of avoiding similar outcomes and having his head hit the ground or otherwise putting himself unnecessarily in harm's way and not taking a sack, bailing out, throwing the ball away. And that's what he's going to have to learn. Another injury note for the Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill. We mentioned this on Sunday night, Football Night in America. He was in a walking boot, but I was told it wasn't anything serious other than the fact that he's in a walking boot. They do expect him. They're optimistic that he'll play. They don't expect him to play. They're optimistic, glass half full, that walking boot comes off and Tyreek Hill plays against the Vikings on Sunday. And regardless of who the quarterback is, you need that guy who's going to strike fear in the defense, especially when you can give him a quick pass and he can cut right through. The defense we saw do the Keystone Cops routine earlier when we watched the Justin Fields highlight. If they can't track down Justin Fields, they got no chance against Tyreek Hill.
No, you're right. And when you have a guy like Skylar Thompson, or you need a guy like that because of like what you're saying, the stress he puts on the defense. Him and Waddle together, coupled with how McDaniels calls the game, he puts defenses in a bind, and they have to play a certain way that maybe they don't want to play because they got to protect, like what you're talking about. They might throw a screen to this guy, and he goes 70 up the sideline. They might throw a slant. Whoa, this guy went this way, this guy went this way. And that would chop a big leg out of what Skylar Thompson and his first start as an NFL quarterback could maybe do. He looked pretty good in the first game. He certainly wasn't deer in the headlights or anything like that. That was a tough situation. And he made some nice throws. And I'd like to remind people, the game was 19-17 with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Dolphins missed a field goal, the long field goal. The Jets got a short field and few plays, touchdown. The next drive was a strip sack fumble, short field, touchdown, and the game was kind of over. And then the Dolphins had to go for it on fourth down, backed up. And so the 40-17 is very misleading. That game was very even with Skylar Thompson in the football game. And I don't put it past the Dolphins and them to be able to win this football game against Minnesota, who, like you've said a few times in the show, they're 4-1. Respect. I like what Kevin O'Connell's doing. I'm not sure it's a real 4-1 yet. I think
no,
we're both
in
agreement there. Yeah, right.
It's
okay.
not.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm on with Paul Allen, the voice of the Vikings, every Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock his time, and right out of the gates to start his show. And I say it almost every week. This is a team that seems destined to get to the playoffs, maybe win in the wild card round, and then come up against a great team in the divisional round and get destroyed, whether it's the 49ers, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Bucks. There's a ceiling on what the Vikings can do this year, and I don't care what their record is, and I don't care if they get lucky and keep drawing these inside straights and parlay it all the way to the 1 seed in the NFC. That divisional round is when they're going to have somebody that they come up against that is clearly better than them. Now, I guess there's a chance that they get better before our eyes and develop more confidence, and but I just feel like I've seen this movie end for the Vikings this way pretty much every year since they made it to the Super Bowl, when they've been good, they run up against somebody that's better at some point before they can get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I hear you. I know. I mean, I have that same feel for them as we sit here right now. But we'll see. Maybe they grow as a football team and continue to get better here. And like we talk about, sometimes, they're still working out the kinks, a new offense, new defense on both sides of the ball. At least it's positive energy. That's for sure. They seem to believe in themselves a little that way. And, fortunate. Yeah, you're fortunate the way the schedule is shaked out. They're just fortunate that you're going to get to play the Dolphins with a third-string quarterback to where maybe you could be sitting here 5-1. And, oh, wow, now we go to the bye week and, okay, we regather and continue to play better football to where they can maybe be a force. But I'm with you. I don't think they're in the class of, like you're saying, the Eagles, Tampa, the 49ers, Dallas. Not yet. I'm not ready to put them in that class. That's for sure.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.